Thank you for browsing page 121. I've got a display of a couple of rule books here, the BattleTech Traveler Core Rulebook 2022 and the DMG. How come? Well, this is just a reminder that the GM/DM is a player also. And as a player, they can suffer burnout. In fact, it's more common for DMs or GMs to suffer burnout than it is for players. And one thing that I always keep in mind as I'm prepping a game and carving my time out of my week to be able to play is that I'm here to have fun too. And that's something that does seem to get lost on a lot of people who run games. The referee tends to kind of put themselves second to the desires and enjoyment of the players. And that's a huge mistake. I've seen many DMs, GMs burn out by doing exactly that. My original Traveler GM did that to himself. He burnt himself out on Traveler because all he did was think and work on Traveler. And he ran really good games and they were a lot of fun. But within about 2 years, he was completely burnt on it. This same individual burnt himself out on Champions and D&D in the same way. And he was a player very often in those other two games. But he just decided that whatever he was going to do, he was just going to dive in all the way, and that was all he was going to do, and he was going to surge forward no matter how tired of the subject he was getting. And that did lead to burnout, and at some point or another, he left all those games. He came back several times, but for the most part, he burnt himself out. And that's the point of today's game. I, as a DM of D&D or GM of many other games, I do hit burnout. I hit times when I just don't want to run another D&D game. It happens. That's normal. I recognize the burnout, and when I hit the burnout, before it gets too bad, I go to my players and I say, hey guys, next week I want to play something different. And D&D is the primary game we play, probably about 3 D&D games to one other, something along those lines, maybe not quite that much, but I'll go to them and I'll say, okay, I need a break from D&D, let's play some Traveler. And then we'll play Traveler for a few weeks, and then we'll go back to D&D, or I'll say I need a break from both. Let's play some BattleTech. Let's play some Champions. Let's play Gamma World. Any of that stuff can do a lot to go ahead and build in and renew your interest in the games. DMs, GMs, referees, however you want to call it, spend the most time, at least in my experience, thinking and working on the various games. They also expend the most money thinking and working on various games. I have far more game rule books and minis and all kinds of terrain stuff, way more than any of my players, and that's how it should be. They don't run, and when they do run, they use my stuff. So we just kind of concentrate everything here. Now, my players do occasionally pick up minis and even paints and some other stuff and say, here you go, this is for the table. And I've always appreciated that, and I really do. But I don't get a lot of break from actually running the games. Once in a while, one of my players will step up and say, hey, I'll run this week and you can take a week off. And that's wonderful. But because I am the perennial DM, I find I have to have a break now and again. I have to change up games. And that's the thing that I'm kind of saying today, is that everybody has to remember that the referee is a player also. They're not just there as some robot that knows all this stuff and can go indefinitely discussing it and talking about it. No, they need breaks too, and they need to have fun. If the game's not fun for the person running it, the campaign's not going to stay together for any real length of time. And that happens a lot. That is one of the most common ways that I've seen for campaigns to fall apart, is that the guy running it just gets tired of doing it. Nobody else wants to take on the work and be the one who runs it. To that end, to keep myself fresh, I have been GMing, DMing, whatever you want to call it, for nearly 45 years. Next, in April, it will be 45 years since I started playing, and I DM'd the very first day I played. That's a long time. And the secret to my longevity in doing that is twofold. One, of love of the games, of any kind of games like this. And two, knowing when it's time to take a break from one game system, transitioning over to another and having some fun. A lot of times if we're having a game, or maybe it's a last minute thing where a couple people have canceled, so I don't really feel I can run a game forward, we'll go ahead and we'll default to Spellfire. And we'll just play some Spellfire for a week, and everybody gets to relax. Nobody's really running that. We all know how to play it. And it's just an opportunity for us to relax and have fun. But the point of the video and the point of everything I'm saying is that players need to stay engaged in order to enjoy the game. Referees need to stay engaged in order to enjoy the game. And remember, your referee is carving out even more time per week than you are. So I guess what I'm pleading for is everybody a little understanding when the referee needs to go ahead and transition to another game for a little bit, or just takes a step back for a week or two where they're not running. And remember that the referee's there to enjoy himself also. He wouldn't be doing it if he didn't like it. I personally, my game prep is usually about 1 hour to 1 hour of play. So if I'm running a 3-hour game, I usually have about 3 hours of prep that week to do it. So I'm actually investing at least double the time that my players are. And I don't even count game prep as anything that I read incidental to that. As I'm prepping things for the channel or I'm working on a game, the two often mix, and I'll feature stuff on the channel that I'm researching for my game. But I don't really count that as even prep time. I'm talking about actually jotting down notes and writing up ideas and such. That's usually about a 1 hour to 1 hour ratio for me. So if I'm going to GM 3 hours, I'm going to actually be writing up stuff for about 3 hours and then doing additional research on top of that. So it can be a lot, and it can lead to burnout. So like I say, the thing I'm preaching the most is that remember that your referee, GM, DM, whatever you want to call it, is there to have fun too. They've carved time out of their week, and just kind of keep that in mind. If something doesn't go quite the way you wanted, and maybe your referee makes a ruling you don't care for, remember this guy's spent a lot of time getting it ready. You might want to contest the ruling, and that's perfectly fine. I encourage that. But you don't want to crawl up in their face about it or anything like that, because then that leads to resentment and all kinds of other problems. So like I said, the takeaway from this video is remember, your referee's there to have fun too. So that's all I've got to say today on page 121. I want to thank you for your time. Thanks for watching. Let me know what you had. If you had DMs that have just burnt out and gone away from the game, have you walked away from a game just due to burnout? I find that playing multiple games over the course of a year keeps me from burnout, but that's me. Let me know how you cope with it. Also, please leave comments below, like and subscribe. Take a look at the Patreon, see if you can help me out there. And I'll see you next time on page 121.